Hello, this is Anton Chuvakin from Google Cloud Office of the CISO. And the topic today, of course, this being AI Summit, the topic is AI. But the topic is not just AI. We're going to cover some of the elements of our approach for securing AI that we practice at clients, as well as internally. And we call it SAIF. And yes, I know somebody from marketing should be rewarded for a great acronym. We'll get to the details, but I want to start from the headlines. And of course, many security presentations kind of start from scary headlines. And of course, we've had a fair share of scary headlines connected to the topic. But I wanted to pick on one specific headline. And that headline, when I saw it first, it sort of triggered me. It kind of had a bit of a visceral reaction in me because somebody said, we already failed to secure AI, and we did pretty much what we did for every other technology before that, for cloud, for mobility, for client and server, or TCP/IP. You can go back decades and find examples of technologies being developed and then secured at later stages once they're adopted. And when I saw this headline, I really wanted to argue with it because I know deep down that at Google we haven't. And we've been doing some of the things that kind of look cool, look very 2023 for people, but we've been doing them for half a decade or sometimes longer. So to me, it's almost our safe approach is our argument that we haven't, in fact, failed to secure AI. And we, in fact, started with security in mind. So when I ask this question during my public presentations, I ask audiences both internally, externally, have we missed the boat on securing AI? I certainly get both types of responses. I get people say, yeah, sorry, Anton, we are doing the same thing we've always done. Namely, we build the tech, we get it adopted, and then we wake up and say, hey, what about security? That's a classic story that goes back, half a century at this point with various technologies. But I want to argue that we haven't, in fact, done this for AI. And we started, at least at Google, with security being there from day one. And we have enough proof points behind it. Now, I do get some people who agree that for AI, we haven't missed the boat because ultimately missing the boat, stakes are a bit high compared to some other technological waves. So we haven't. If I look at examples of our AI innovation, and this is very like a vendor hat kind of slide, but the interesting bit about this is that the history of security innovation at Google and history of AI innovation kind of go hand by hand. And my favorite example from this visual is when people start writing these little blogs and papers about the red team in AI and how cool it is to have a red team for AI and how people should get one. And we kind of look around and say, yeah, that's a really good idea. In fact, we had a red team for AI since 2017. And we don't mean like regular red team for security was testing AI. It was a special team with people who actually know AI. So to me, some of the stuff we've been doing for half a decade, in this case, literally for half a decade, is our proof that we haven't, in fact, failed to secure AI, that we are doing something for many years and have a lot of experience doing it well. But when we look at the domain, of course, it's not just about securing AI. And while this is about SAIF and it's an AI security summit, the domain is very broad. And when I talk to security leaders and to security technologists about securing AI, what they bring is not just security, the word in the corner of the slide. They bring up all of this. And you look at some of them and you think, why is this on security leaders' plate? Moreover, in one case, I've asked one security leader, what are you talking about this intellectual property stuff? You're a CISO, right? You're supposed to deal with risks and hacking and insiders and compliance, perhaps. But why is IP? Why is it in your inbox? How did it land in your inbox? Can you shove it out? And he looked at me kind of funny and he said, guess how it ended up in my inbox? Everybody else shoved it out of theirs. And while this is somewhat of a humorous story, it indicates that a few things, they do come with the territory. And if we deal with security of AI projects, the regulatory compliance of AI, we have to deal with things like privacy, of course. Here it's one of the key focus areas for many, many, many years, if not decades, as well as other things that are much more connected to AI mission, like ethics and explainability. And of course, governance becomes a centerpiece. We've recently written a paper on AI governance, and at this point, it's probably the most requested resource. People say, right, I'm not here to talk about hacking and details. I'm here to talk about how do I govern all this. And the breadth of the domain is further bulked up or expanded, if I may say it this way, by the whole BYO AI. And what do I mean by that? It means that for this technology wave, in many companies, the adoption happens from people bringing the employees, bringing AI, going to consumer grade tools like ChatGPT or Bard or others and saying, I'm going to use it for business. So not to judge, and we have a blog post with analysis of this published recently on consumer grade AI versus enterprise risks. The point is that it's happening. It's part of reality. We cannot wish it away. So as security leaders, we have to deal with many of this to different parts. Explainability, I mean, frankly, I'd leave it in the hands of AI experts, but it does affect security. So in essence, the domain is very broad. Unlike, say, the adoption of cloud or mobility or other technologies before that, this comes with non-trivial breadth and breadth of issues. So this is where, when we are developing and using the approach we call SAIF, it isn't just the S in SAIF stands for security. Many of these things are covered because some of the controls are the same, some of the approaches are similar, and some of the risks, such as in safety, are similar. Now, admittedly, security is my focus area, so I'm not qualified to speak on, say, AI explainability, but these do come up in many AI conversations. I want to go from very broad to very narrow. In the industry, we have a lot of organizations building frameworks to catalog more narrow cyber-specific, well, in this case, cyber threat badness. There is, of course, an effort by OWASP. This is the MITRE Atlas effort that I'm showing here. All these go and focus more narrowly on cybersecurity threats. And some of them do come up, and they come up as in a similar way to say things in a pre-AI land. And there's a big lively debate online about whether prompt injection is in some way similar to SQL injection. These are all well-known debates. Or phishing, for example, comes up on the MITRE categorization. The point is that some of this mixes up traditional craft of security, and some of it is definitely very new. The point is the work is ongoing to catalog both the specific types of cyber badness and broad types of, issues around AI. And while we're doing all that, regulations are happening at pretty rapid pace. Now, I'm showing these headlines here just to remind everybody that regulatory momentum in AI is pretty rapid, and we have a lot of people who actually deal with this on a daily basis. That's not me. The point is that it affects the approaches we can practice for security. It affects what we need to do. And of course, it would have the controls that work for both security compliance as well as safety, responsible AI, and other elements I mentioned. So this is also an area where change is very rapid. It's kind of unexpectedly rapid, I would put it this way. And knowing how regulators move, I've dealt with PCI DSS for a good number of years, makes me think that this is unusual and somewhat more rapid than it happened for other things. So let's go from sort of problems and context setting and the breadth of the domain to something that's actually closer to a solution. So I kind of let you in on the secret. We at Google actually know how to do this. And some of the stuff that seems very much like weeks old for others, we've been doing this for years, if not decades. So how are we using this, and how are we helping others with that knowledge? This is where SAIF comes in. Secure AI Framework is a set of 6 pillars or principles in various documents where we apply it and talk to clients about it. We use the principles or pillars. The point is that we cover things that are more traditional in nature, like, say, building AI on a secure cloud platform, like, well, Google Cloud comes to mind very quickly, but also dealing with things that are specific to AI. We mentioned AI red teaming inside bucket, inside Principle 6, inside a few others. And of course, there is automating defenses to AI. And that, by the way, brings me an interesting comment that I've heard. Sometimes people assume that security for AI would be absolutely handled by AI. And I would say that's a yes, but answer, because some of the security controls for artificial intelligence would actually use more traditional approaches or other innovative approaches, perhaps not necessarily AI. We would use AI to secure AI, but we wouldn't only use AI for that. One of the challenges is the rapid pace of innovation and change. So controls, pillars 2, 5, and actually 6 as well, mean that a lot of processes must run much faster. So if we can say, hey, we're going to do a threat assessment, we're going to do threat modeling, we'll decide on the controls, and then next year we'll procure tools. That may not work here. We need to move much faster. And of course, clients who are using AI for business need to move much faster. So SAIF has launched. We revealed it to the world in June 2023. And since that time, we've built a lot of public-facing materials, resources. We've provided guidance to clients. The point is that this is ongoing, and the value of this is largely to make sure that lessons we learn securing AI can be used by others, by our clients, and of course, by the world. In this case, it's not just about, hey, do this or learn from us. It's more about reminding people that the stakes and the challenges in this domain are quite dramatic. And there are people who actually know how to handle it for many of this. And clients, as a result, can utilize, say, Vertex AI and a few other things we've built to actually deploy it securely from day one. So not only our experiences, yes, it's secure from day one, but also clients' experience can be secure from day one. To me, that's very useful and very, very critical to keep this in mind, is that it's ultimately not about let's adopt it, let's secure it. No, in this case, we are adopting it in a secure form, and you can do that too. So somebody asked me that question. Of course, those of you who've seen me present in public sometimes know that I refer to so-called 3 a.m. example. Namely, if somebody wakes you up at 3 a.m. and says, Anton, what's this SAIF thing you launched? I would probably start with this answer, conceptual framework to help collaborate with secure AI technology. But when people see this, they think, well, it's conceptual. So I want to address this word. Now, the 6 SAIF pillars help you figure out roughly where to look and what to think of when securing AI projects, applications, efforts. But it also has a lot of technical depth behind it. It's not just about concepts, how to think about it. When we think about using it internally, for example, it not only helps us articulate hard problems with securing AI, given the breadth of the domain, given the differences, but it also distills lessons of our experiences so that they're usable by others. That's actually really tricky. In some cases, our experiences are quite unusual because, well, we are Google, and we still want to make others benefit from some of the lessons learned. One of my favorites, as I'm working on efforts connected to SAIF, is this whole data as code or data is code for AI, which changes security thinking quite dramatically. When you realize that these systems are not programmed by programmers writing what they would do, but they are ultimately, quote unquote, programmed by given data. This changes data governance. This changes data security. This changes approaches to filtering input and output. So this means that when you practice SAIF for AI, you do have to think differently in this particular domain. That's one of the biggest differences, I would say. There are others. Finally, we also focus on applying traditional security lessons in AI context. This means that it's not about, oh, it changes everything. Well, it doesn't really change everything. You need to have the secure platform. You need to not make the mistakes you learned not to make when you move to cloud, role of identity, identity governance, specifically access. Many of these things from the pre-Gen AI and pre-AI era very much apply here. So to me, the logic is not just, hey, learn these new cool things, but also practice these old things because they're now more important in some cases. Again, data governance comes to mind. By the way, as a quick side note, and maybe in a slight self-promotional side note, we also wrote a paper focusing on highlighting these differences and similarities. What is different about security AI versus what's similar? Of course, the paper uses SAIF to frame the domains, but then it highlights the elements that are dramatically different, kind of like data security changes a lot, and areas that are not very different, such as security infrastructure. So great, good story, good, exciting things, AI, security. Let's go talk about this more. No, actually, let's use it. Let's not just talk about it. So I want to focus on 2 elements in the time I have remaining. Now, admittedly, I would be a little bit cryptic as far as how we are putting this into practice at Google. But a lot of the work streams, a lot of the efforts we have apply and focus in SAIF pillars on things we do in engineering level, at the infrastructure level. I admittedly won't provide any details on this, apart from the fact that there's a lot of work by a lot of people, including both AI experts, security experts, and experts in other domains like privacy compliance, are going into this. So in that sense, we are eating our dog food, as people often say. We're also implementing this in metal and not just in conceptual frameworks and blogs and other materials. But what I will talk about more is how we actually help clients with that. We go through a simple process, and some of you with a consulting mindset would look at say, yeah, Anton, that's like pretty much every big consulting project like deploying CRM or something. But there's actually not exactly the truth, because ultimately, many discussions I had with chief security officers, security leaders, security technologists really focus on step one, and it's understanding the use case. It gives me flashbacks to my SIM days when understand the use case was the key to security operation success. Here, it differentiates between using Gen AI for a chatbot exposed to the internet, to the public, versus using something for testing, for experimentation on internal data. Use cases really drive the controls, the impacts, the implications that you have coming from AI. Now, some of you also know that I used to be a Gartner analyst. And when we wrote Gartner papers, we would usually not say get the team together because it's assumed that every large project will have a team. Here, the reason we go and sort of violate my ex-employer rule is that the team composition for many of these projects with clients is somewhat unusual. And you do have to have not just cloud engineering or security or data science teams, but also maybe very often legal, HR, privacy. So this is a very broad team composition that's connected to the broad domain that we are talking about. And then we go and review a few things about the life cycle of development, again, referring it to use cases, whether it's a chatbot or an experimental project or something that affects people in bigger ways. And then we start applying 6 SAIF elements based on the use case, considering the broad domain, and with keeping AI primer in mind. This to me has worked really well. And admittedly, on this slide, the process is high level, but there are details about how we actually approach each of them that we typically handle in workshops. The point is that this is happening, and this allows companies to adopt AI with security in mind. When we apply it to Vertex AI and other enterprise AI tools we have, it allows clients to also start secure from day one, or safe from day one, rather than deploy and then learn. So I wanted to get people involved and get people not just learning about this and learning how we use it, but also building it together with us, learning SAIF and getting involved. And ultimately, the second pillar is that embracing SAIF as a path to secure, compliant AI that follows the guidelines that have been set for it. Finally, and this is very interesting and somewhat unusual for a security presentation, a compliance presentation, this SAIF approach is built in such a way that you can actually be safe, secure, compliant, but also not slow down dramatically. Because some of the traditional approaches to security would be the security team to say, no, stop, don't do this, let's go study risks for years. In this case, AI changes too quickly and adoption is happening very rapidly. So we need to both do it in a secure way, practice this, but don't slow down. To me, don't slow down may surprise you as a security audience, because why is this security person says about not slowing down? But the point is that there are risks to AI, but there are also risks to not using AI, right? And if falling behind is a risk, right? So to me, the SAIF approach is to me, in my mind, a unique way to practice things securely without slowing down. To me, this is why this approach is so effective. This is why we love it. This is why our clients love it. And this is also built on years of experience we have actually doing this. So join us, help us develop it, help us adopt it. Thank you very much for your attention.